So, hey friends, true to my dual years resolution, yes, I know, bad Yu-Gi-Oh puns. I am just here to talk about you and Yu-Gi-Oh this year, and I'll still be doing all the other content, but today I've got a special guest, our first guest on the show, Mr. Zach Butler, or Z Butler
Hello.
TCG. And yeah, I know who you are, Zach, and probably a lot of competitive duelists know who you are, but for the broader Yu-Gi-Oh community, for like if Yugi Moto walks up, tell us about you.
Well, I've played Yu-Gi-Oh since its inception. I watched the anime on release, as well as I somewhere not with me here because I just moved. I actually still have the very first Shonen Jump magazine edition, which is crazy to think about. It makes me feel really old. Um, but I have played since inception. I have played literally every format, um, and there has only been one WCQ since 2009 that I didn't play in. Or no, there's been two because there was one that I was sick. It was in 2014, and then 2023 I didn't play in because I was doing coverage. And I write for TCGPlayer.com, so shoutouts to infinite.tcgplayer.com. So you might recognize me from there. I do all sorts of like the competitive stuff. I do casual stuff. I've done speed duel. I do finance. Kind of just everything. I've been with them for it'll be 8 years this July, which is pretty crazy to think about. Um, I spent a year at Konami, behind the scenes working in marketing, which was a lot of fun. Got to learn a lot of really cool stuff there, and spent every day like gushing because I'm a super fan. And then I did coverage for Konami during that time as well. I did stream coverage, and then I did written coverage, which is something very near and dear to my heart because when I was growing up as a duelist, we didn't have streams at all. So we only had the written coverage. So getting to do that was really special. And I did that until the beginning of this year. And then I've spent most of this year kind of just working behind the scenes on some stuff to get ready for like to really ramp up my YouTube stuff. And I've been trying to do that as Steven, because I use you as a sounding board for a lot of my ideas. So
I
that's
love that
kind of
we're
like
in.
the basic idea.
No, I love that we're in like the whole. We got to like detangle a lot of that, and it's also great to be
Yeah.
in like what I consider season 5 of my life in Yu-Gi-Oh, where everybody just knows my name. Finally, it's Steven, right? Because it was always
Yep.
Pharaoh Bone. It's like, what is the Pharaoh's name? It's Steven. It's very normal. But I want to detangle a lot of that because you've gotten a very full Yu-Gi-Oh life, right? You've gotten to be in the competitive scene. You've gotten to do coverage. You've gotten to work directly with the brand and the marketing context. But that's the newer part. Let's go back to
Yeah, it really
little
is.
Zach. We're gonna scroll the clock back 23ish years because I think that's when the anime came out for us. Do you remember like your first interaction? Like, there's Yu-Gi-Oh, there's you, and like,
Yes. It was actually the pilot episode coming out on, I want to say it was like a Saturday morning, like WB cartoon, but it was like the first day of it coming out. And I was like, what is this? Because I was watching Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, oh, okay. And I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like, this show's crazy. And I remember seeing The Dark Magician, and like that's what sold me on that. I was like, that's the coolest card in anything I've ever seen. And so I watched the anime, and then I found out that it was a game in Japan. And my mom actually had gone to a flea market that day and picked up some uh, fake Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I still have somewhere. I have somewhere in my collection. This is like my office is a very tiny portion of my stuff, but I still have like my fake, really bad quality Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And that was like the beginning. And then I remember the day the game came out in 2002 was on March 10th, pretty sure. And I remember because I had gotten all like perfect grades on my report cards. So my mom let me skip school that day. And I went
ooh,
down to my local game store and I bought both starter decks and some booster packs. And the rest is history from there. I mean, like the packs came out before that too. I also bought a couple of packs, but like the starter decks came out right after the packs did, and it was really exciting.
it's cool. It's cool. I do
That's a long
remember
time
back
ago.
then getting like the original starter decks. Were you like a starter deck Yugi guy or a Kaiba guy, or did you get both?
So I bought both. Let me see.
Oh, you got them.
So my starter deck Kaiba Blue Eyes are actually they're set aside for the Blue Eyes starter deck coming out. Um,
Mm.
even though they probably only get used once. But I actually have right here my original Dark Magician. This is the very first one I ever had, and then I have my second one right here because I had to get a second one because there was this kid at my school who had 3 blue eyes. I was like, I need a second dark magician to do that. I don't really know how the math on that one worked out, but I knew that when I activated Yami and a couple of equip spells, though, I was stronger, so it was pretty good. But yeah, so near and dear.
Good old Fate spellcaster
beatdown.
God, so in the beginning, obviously there wasn't a lot of sets, and the tournament scene was kind of all over the place. At least that was my experience. Do you remember like the first regional that you might have entered, or even like a local tournament?
I remember the exact local I entered because I was just talking to one of the players about this because I still know most of the players from back then, which is really weird to think about. That like most of us have grown up and we're like in our 30s and 40s, and some of us are even older than that. But I remember the very first local tournament I ever went to. It was on a Wednesday night, and I had heard about it randomly through a kid at school. And I went, and I remember going, and I was like beating up everybody at school. So my mom was like, "Okay, listen." Well, the very first tournament I ever went to was actually a Toys R Us, because I still have my sheep tokens somewhere too.
Okay.
But then, like, this is the very first real tournament, because the Toys R Us duels were whatever. Like, it was just like you play and then you fill out this little thing and you get some tokens at the end, and everybody has fun. But I was really competitive with Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, and I dabbled in Magic a little bit. It was not my thing. So I was, when I heard Yu-Gi-Oh! Had tournaments, it's like, I gotta do that. And I remember going, and my mom told me, if you lose, it's okay. These guys are probably better than you. And so I show up, and I'm playing an Armed Dragon deck. Which, for those who don't know the deep lore behind my love of Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's extra funny. So it's
we
playing an
don't know.
Armed Dragon.
No, tell the deep lore.
So I gotta grab my binder again. So Armed Dragons are my favorite theme in Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever. Chaz is my all-time favorite singleton character. And like when I say they're my favorite theme, I mean like we've got.
Oh goodness! Okay, we chazzing it up.
We got all the. I own one Starlight Rare, and it's Armed Dragon Thunder level 10. It's the only Starlight Rare I own. But when the lore there is that like I just love the Armed Dragon stuff. When I started at Konami, it was right when Blazing Vortex was getting ready to come out. And so they were like, it's a Zack set. And then Ghost in the Past came out, and they reprinted that. And then Armed Dragon level 10 got reprinted as Ultimate Rare, and I'm like, this is just, it's my time. Terrible deck, by the way, but so much fun.
Hey! The Chaz
no, it's listen, I play Armed Dragon on Master Duel. I have a secret account that like no one knows is mine, but anybody who used to work with me definitely knows it's mine. And I've gotten to like Master 1 with it a few times, but Armed Dragon Thunder is just horrendous. But it's so fun.
I do love decks that are like fixer-uppers, because I feel like if you speak with Duelists, they're like, this is my deck, and like it's Crystal Beasts, or it's Harpulators, or it's like Ojamas or something, and you don't usually see like at every YCS an Ojama deck topping, right? But people still love it, so it's cool to know that like even you who have like been in the thick of the competitive scene in the belly of the beast, you're like, no, it's just about little level 3 wind guys.
Well, it's even funnier because the original Speed Duel GX product, the Armed Dragon deck in there is mine. That's actually my Duel Links deck.
Oh,
and then the Ojama deck is also my Duel Links deck. And then the Dr. Crowler deck, I think, was also mine. Like, those are the 3 that I was like, I gotta do those 3. And then I put everything together in there so that you could build my exact Duel Links deck that I still play. But my very first tournament, I win round 1, and I'm like, I'm him. Like, Yugi, step aside. And then I just lose the next 3 rounds in, like, no time. And I'm like, this was crazy. Like, these people are so good. And this is, like, 2004, so it's, like, early goat control type stuff, and I was sitting here playing like my Armed Dragon cards, or 2005 somewhere in there, but I was terrible. And I remember getting picked up, and my mom goes, "How did it go?" And I was like, "Well, I lost like every round basically." And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "No, that was awesome. Can I go again?" And then I was hooked. And then that actually is why I became a judge, was because the judge there was getting ready to move, and we needed a new local judge, so I started learning like the mechanics of the game and stuff, and went from there. And then I took the test and became a judge under the old company that used to license Yu-Gi-Oh! And started playing in regionals and stuff. And I remember my first regional, I went 4-4. I was very impressed with a Spellcaster beatdown deck.
Ooh.
And it was like triple Kayaku, triple Gravekeeper Spot. It was terrible.
No, I mean, old Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like all over the place, and
it really was. It was the Wild West of deck building too. You had no idea what was going on.
Gosh, those were the days. I know that, especially up in New York City when Invasion of Chaos came out, every card was bad unless it was a dark or a light. You're like, oh, Reflect
Yes.
Bounder? I mean, that's not that good, but it's a light. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, get on the bus. Get on the bus.
That was like, I remember when I first started playing the Monarch cards, it's like, if it's not a 1 tribute, I don't read it. It's the craziest thing. And then chats came out with Light and Darkest Dragon. I'm like, alright, if it's not Light and Darkest Dragon, it's not good. Terrible card.
Lad is crazy. So we know about your basic Yu-Gi-Oh history now, with Armed Dragon. Was there any weirdness when GX came out? Because I know for a lot of fans, when you leave Duel Monsters, you're one of the people like, oh, I love Chaz. I'm going to go ahead and play all these Armed Dragons. But was there any point, like, over the history of the game where you're like, oh, I love the game, but I'm not sure I'm vibing with, like, these characters?
Yes. Well, so it's interesting because I think the Armed Dragon stuff came out like right as the GX anime really ramped up. I don't remember. I'm dating myself here because I think I was like middle school or something like that. But back then it's also 20 years ago.
Yeah,
so
20 years
give
ago.
myself that excuse. The thing that made me the most like I don't know about this in Yu-Gi-Oh was probably Pendulum Monsters.
That's fair. That happens.
It wasn't even like the mechanic. It was just that I could not wrap my head around the board. Like the field layout was so confusing to me. And I'm somebody who like my maths are very special to me. So I have what was it? At that point I was still using like one of my favorite regional mats, and then I was using like my Doom Caliber Knight 50th Shonen Championship mat. And then suddenly none of these were any good anymore. And I had this like confused me. So that was one that was kind of iffy to me. Link Monsters at first, I was like, I don't know if that's really going to be like all that good. And then I played with them for 5 minutes, like, these cards are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is the craziest thing ever. And I just also remember reading Firewall Dragon. I'm like, this is the craziest card. This thing has what?
Do you
my
remember
goodness, yeah.
that very first combo video I think Jesse Cotton put out where it was like a Firewall OTK plant deck or whatever, and it was just like
it was Jeff
spamming
Jones.
and
It was
spamming?
Jeff Jones.
Oh,
and
it was
he
Jeff
just,
Jones.
Like,
My
and it was
apologies.
because that was how I learned about what Link Monsters were, because that was also like I was looking at maybe taking a step back for a little bit, because I was starting to get really busy with like my personal life and my career. And then I saw that and I was like, I can play plants again, because for years that's all I played. My favorite deck for the longest time to play was any Synchron spam deck. I was just like, yes. Anytime I get to play Quick Draw Synchron, I was there. So that was kind of obnoxious.
Kind of like a
And
Tengu
then-
plant sort of situation. Those
Oh
were
yeah,
crazy times.
Yep. Edison format's one of my favorite Time Wizard formats for a reason.
What are you
Between-
playing in Edison right now then?
Let me find it. I have it.
Give me my
It's not Quick Draw Plants, and it's something that it is the very first deck that I was like ahead of the curve on. Back in 2008, I played GBs.
Ooh, okay. Times.
And most of these are actually the same. I played GBs from 2008, pretty much outside of Teledad format, where I picked up Teledad. I played GBs until just before Edison, actually. I didn't go to Edison. I ended up sick, but I played GBs almost exclusively for like 2 years. So getting to play them again was very exciting. Shoutouts to Michael Kohanem. He and I love to talk about Gladiator Beasts. Anytime that we're on like an event together, I feel bad for whoever else is working with us, because we're just sitting there just yapping out Gladiator Beasts and how cool they are like the whole time.
Oh, no, I remember...
These cards are terrible, but they're so awesome. I remember back in 2009, back in my day. And then,
I remember,
like
that
Billy
was
Wants
the
like, okay,
Trinity,
Grandpa.
though. The big Trinity, right?
Yeah.
It was Light Sworn, like the Dark Arm Dragon variants, and then Gladiator Beasts. And
Yep.
Gadgets was like the only deck that was kind of thrown into that mix and like maybe could make it.
My favorite
You're
part
frowning
was...
in Gadget. I remember frowning in Gadget, too.
Well, I think Gadgets was my second regional top ever. But the reason I was frowning about it was because I also remember that at that time, every single Forbidden Limited list that would come out, everybody was like, all right, now GBs are the best deck. Without fail. Every single, you're like, all right, now that they've done this, Gladiator Beasts reign supreme. It was every single format for like 6 years. And finally people were like, all right, maybe they're not good. I was like, it took you guys this long to realize this?
Oh goodness.
So,
I was down in Texas by that time, and for us, it was always Dark World. At the beginning of the Forbidden and Limited list, everybody brought their Dark World stuff. I got, spell and trap removal and monster destruction. This new Gren came out, and I'm like, that's. And then you would just bring out something like Haiku the Ghost Destroyer or anything, and you would just banish their stuff, and they would just be done.
I just remember for the longest time, at the beginning of every Forbidden Limited list, I would show up to the first local without fail with GBs. I'd sweep it and I'd go, all right, this deck is terrible. I'm gonna play something else. Like every single time. And my friends always made fun of me because there's always like the max rarity Gladiator Beast deck, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still not gonna play this. This deck just does not do anything. And they're like, how are you winning? Like, because you guys just don't understand how to beat a Gladiator Beast War Chariot and a 2100 attack point monster. Apparently, that's too much.
Laquari's good, man. Laquari's good.
Laquari is very good. And Hoplimus is the best Gladiator Beast. I'll die on this hill. I play 3 in like every Gladiator Beast
That's
deck.
the Rhino that's 21 that becomes 24 when it's tagged in, right? 24 is ridiculous for that era.
It's so funny to just set that, and then you set like a Dust Tornado, and everyone's like, okay, attack your face down monster, and it's at that, they're like, what? And then they find out I played 3, and I remember because I topped a bunch of regionals with it, and I was always having 3 Hoplimus in my deck, and it just became the running joke that you never attack a face down monster if I'm in the room, because there's going to be Hoplimus everywhere. One of my friends, he just started playing again after like a 10-year break. We were playing Duel Links and stuff for fun, and he saw that I was playing Gladiator Beast. He goes, I'm not even going to look at the deck list. I already know it's starting with 3 Hoplimus. I'm like, oh, you know it is. Oh, you know. That's always there. It's my boy.
Well, with that in mind, does all the new support that's recently been coming out for Gladiator Beast, is that like exciting, like from the Supreme Darkness card pool?
So I don't know what any of it does. I am really bad. So it's funny. For as much as I write about Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know and I keep up with the game, I have a really bad habit. So at first I have this habit, and I'll explain why in a second, but I don't read cards before they come out. Very rarely, I think I can count on like one hand, the number of times in the last like 4 or 5 years, I've read a card before it came out. And it used to be that when I was only competing, I would do that to avoid like tunnel visioning on an idea. Because like I remember when like Elder Entity Norden was announced, and everybody was like, "Oh man, the game's over! FTK's everywhere!" And then none of them ever did anything. Or like, I'm trying to think of another example. Well, when Salmon Great got announced, everyone's like, "Oh my god, the game's over!" And then it was fine. Or like the Ice and Fire Hands. Everyone's like, "This is it! The game's gonna just like explode! Fire will rain down from the skies, and we'll all be in the Palisades. We're fine." It's funny because at that time I actually lived in Nevada too, so
Oh, whoops,
a little close to home. But it was this weird thing where for the longest time, and it still happens a lot, and it's why I'm really careful about the Yu-Gi-Oh media I consume, where people will see a card and they'll cherry pick ideas for it, and then they'll cherry pick from those cherry picked ideas examples of it working, and be like, "This is it. This is the greatest thing ever," and it's great clickbait content, but it doesn't ever really translate almost ever to real success. So I got to the point where it's like, I just won't read cards till they come out. I'm going to focus on what I have in front of me, what I can control, and then I'll go from there. And it's also, I don't really pay attention to OCD trends very much, which is why, like if a deck is doing really well in the OCG, I'm like, that's cool. I don't know anything about what it does. I did not know what the Malice or Ryziel cards did until the day Crossover Breakers came out.
Oh wow! Okay.
I had never read one of those cards, and I remember because I went to my local, read them for the first time, and I went, "This Ryziel deck is crazy." I'm like, it's just, and the best part too is at my locals, everybody knows how to get me to like sign on to an idea. It's if you compare it to a deck I like, I'm like, I'm there. Take my money. And somebody goes, "It's rank 4s." And I'm like, okay, so we got my old Lightsworn and stuff. They go, right, but it's Sprite. I'm like, say no more.
Yeah, it is kind of rank 4 Sprite, isn't it?
It's just rank 4 Sprite. That's all it is. And I was like, I'll build it.
Not a bad idea, like not to kind of consume that. And you're not the only person I've heard that from, where I've heard like Yu-Gi-Oh judges say, "I just wait till it comes out," and that helps too because you're like only memorizing the English correct text so that you're not having any issues there. But it's true that like the OCG is kind of its own vibe over there. It's really cool to follow, but like I'm trying to think of good examples. The Primite, they had Blue Eyes really big over there, and then it wasn't. And the Primite Blue Eyes is really big over there, and then we're about to get that going on. So we'll see if that translates. But most of the time,
a couple that I've felt that way. Sky Striker was a big one. I when I read the Sky Striker cards for the first time, I was like, okay, these are okay. I don't know why everybody thinks they're so crazy. Like they did well in the OCG because their Forbidden and Limitless is different than ours.
Yeah.
And then I played against it, and I was like, this is the craziest deck I've ever seen. What do you mean you're getting like 6,000 draws?
All right,
Yeah.
so we're back after a brief little technical difficulty, but the last question that I asked Zach, just so that we're on the same page, is a situation where, since you don't like to read cards in advance, a situation where you zacked yourself. Effectively, you locked yourself out of that info you might have needed to know. And I think you were talking about Infinite Forbidden. Is that right?
Yes, Infinite Forbidden was definitely a time where I did that with the Fiendsmith cards. I just didn't know what they did, and then I was very surprised by how incredible they were. Because that was another example where, like, I spent a lot of time on social media because of TCG Player and stuff like that. So I interact with players all the time, and I have this opinion where players will just, like, over the top react to things. So I'm like, okay, they're probably not that crazy. Like, relax. Like, if you say it's a 10, it's probably like a 6. Just calm down. If you say it's a 6, it's literally unplayable. It's fine. We have 13,000 cards for a reason. It's okay. I was very wrong. It's very wrong. And then I had read the Millennium cards and thought they were like absolutely phenomenal cards, which is why until Ryzeal came out, I only played Millennium from Infinite Forbidden through Rage of the Abyss until the Ryzeal cards came out. I think there was like 2 or 3 turns where I played something else, but for almost 6 straight months I played Millennium because I thought those cards were really good. I think there's stuff in the past, like really long time ago, like I didn't read what was it, like Brionac when it was like a dual terminal preview. I just didn't know what it was. I was like, we'll get it eventually. Turns out we got it a lot sooner than I thought, and I was like, what does this card do? Oh, I'm dead. So that was like that. And then a good example of me hyping up a card beyond belief, thinking it was going to be crazy and it wasn't, was Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. I thought that was the craziest card ever. I was like, because you can summon it with Debris Dragon and a Snowman Eater. This is insane. It's the new age of like plants, so you can't lose. Terrible.
I only laugh because I didn't see a lot of Gungnirs.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's a shame.
I'm trying to think about what I quote unquote zacked myself, and I hope this doesn't become a meme. I'm sorry in advance.
Oh no, it's fine if it does.
I feel like I'm not, maybe I didn't, because I do a lot of studying. I'm really big, like this is going to be a real throwback for some duelists. Do you remember Shriek.2day.net or like Shriek TCG? Like I used to read on that and Janime.info for like the anime spoilers. So I always have been like a big like scholar, if that makes sense, like reading all the stuff. But I definitely have hyped up cards that, like, I'm like, this is the best card ever. And the one that comes to mind for me, do you remember from Cybernetic Revolution? I think that's the set it was. Conscription, the trap card with, like, the Imperial Order guy. I thought that was the most galaxy brain card ever. I'm like, cool, I'm going to take their monster and, like, maybe I'm going to get Jinzo off the top of their deck. For the chat, what it does is you look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and if it's a monster that can be special summoned, you special summon it to your field. Otherwise, you give the card to your opponent. I'm like, cool, then I'll know what trap card they're about to set. No, wrong. It really wasn't. Maybe other decks can use it, but the way I was trying to use it is just like a one-off stunt card. Not good.
That's me with Overdrive Teleporter. I, to this day, maintain that card will someday be playable.
No, I'm using it on Master Duel. I'm using Overdrive Teleporter.
Every time I can, I'm like, I'm going to throw this in a deck. And they're like, well, I'm like, I don't know, but it's going to be good. It's never once worked how I've wanted it to. I've always had these crazy, like, galaxy brain ideas where, like, I'm, like, doing cold fusion with my deck building, and then it just doesn't work. And I don't understand. Well, I've bought that card so many times. I think I've probably bought and sold, like, 30, 40 copies of that card. And at this point, I've just given up.
Right, you pay the life points, you use it with the Punk Field spell, and then you draw after getting Ash Blossomed. Not bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, then they imperm and you go, oh, okay, well, this is the world's most expensive Upstart Goblin. Nice. Yeah, every single time.
So I know this about you, but I don't know that everybody does. You've got like a Seal of Orichalcos fixation, not in a bad way or anything like that, but why Seal of Orichalcos?
I don't have a fixation on that card. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a binder to back this up. I just knew you liked it.
I don't have a thing with the Seal of Orichalcos.
And those are like the nice copies too, right? With a little hieroglyphs.
I don't know where I have a UDS mat somewhere, and I have a packs of the sleeves, and
but that confirms that you like it, but that doesn't answer the question why you like it. So why the seal?
So green is my favorite color.
Okay.
Besides purple. Specifically lime green. And that story arc is technically not canon.
That's correct. Yeah, it wasn't in the manga.
And it's funny because that was back then was when I had first really started to deep dive like into like the behind the curtain aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I had gotten to learn like what caused that to happen. It was super cool. But I can't remember his name, and I feel really bad because he has been super nice every time I've met him. The voice actor for Joey does the voice for Darts.
Oh, Wayne Grayson, yeah.
Which is really, and it's really cool. But it was just like, it was such a, so like, it was, in a way, it was very much like in the linear idea of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works, but then it was just such a departure of like storylines. You're like, where did this come from? And it was just so cool. And it's just got like the cool. I think it was of all of the the villains. I thought it had like the coolest origins. I thought it had the coolest support cards that we were never gonna get. It is the singular reason I'm upset that there was not a season 4 Speed Duel product, because I was looking forward to playing the Steel Fury Calcos and Speed Duel. It's just it's been one of those cards that I was like, oh yeah, it's so cool. And it's like my favorite card. I've also side decked it more times than probably any human being on the planet. Like
so what are you getting out of that modern Yu-Gi-Oh? It's 500 attack points. It can't be destroyed by a card effect, and they have to attack the biggest monster, right? What deck does that go in?
Well, don't forget, it also doesn't help you because you can't special summon from the extra deck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and it destroys like all your special summon monsters.
Yeah. I was just saying the good part.
I technically have one regional top with it.
Okay.
I got 8th place with Stun.
That works.
Triple copies of the Steel Fury Calcos. There is nothing scarier than a 2400 attack point Thunder King Ryo in 2011.
Wow, yeah, or even
like genuinely horrifying
on Fossil Planet Pachycephalo.
Yeah, it became horrifying. Usually, if I have 14 cards in my side deck and I just don't care to be too serious, I'll throw it in. It has almost never once actually been activated, but I have one match where I activated it, and I also have one match on someone's YouTube channel, if I can ever find it again, where I drew it and I looked at the camera and I just went, oh, this is not happening, and I just continued to attack because I was going to lose otherwise. It was just really funny. It's just like it's my favorite season. I think it has the best storytelling as well, which is funny because it's the most rushed one. So,
yeah, it is just really.
Of course,
wild.
That's when it works out the best. Is that like they're on a time crunch? They just like throw the story together. I'm like, that's the best story they've had. That's just my favorite one.
That's good.
There's like official and unofficial Orichalco stuff all over my office all the time. It's funny, I just tweeted this morning about how I don't own a Yu-Gi-Oh! Graphic t-shirt. Despite being like a super fan, I don't own
like
one.
any of this?
Yeah, I don't own any of them. I own a couple of hoodies, like official and some unofficial. One of my favorite ones is the Dueling Team hoodie that the OCG had for a while. We got it over here for like a very short period of time. I had a phone case with it too, and then it broke, and I was very sad. I had that t-shirt, and I loaned it to somebody. They never gave it back, so that's cool. Shout outs to you. But it's funny because my favorite scene from the entire series is from the Orichalcos season, and it's when when the Pharaoh like slams the ground and goes, "It should have been me," and they turned that into a T-shirt.
They did.
I still haven't bought it, so I need to do that after this because I feel very ashamed that I don't have that T-shirt because that's the best one.
Goodness. I gotta say, it's wild too, because I remember like around that arc, we weren't getting those cards, and then we had Season 5, and that was Dawn of the Duel, and so weirdly, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I actually thought when Ancient Sanctuary dropped, that was the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you get Invasion to Chaos, which is just one of the craziest sets ever printed, and then you get, and I'm not saying anything bad about Ancient Sanctuary, but it's a different power level, right? It's got a few anime cards in there, it's got like some massive, what we would call like, an OCG style theme where it hadn't been in the anime yet, and that was it, and I'm just like, okay, this has been a fun run, and then all of a sudden Soul of the Duels, and we just kept going from there. Was there ever a point that you thought like, there can't be more than this?
There have been a few sets like that. I'm trying to think. Crimson Crisis was one of them. For different reasons. As in 2009, for the historians there. That can kind of give you an idea of why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I just caught that. Whoops.
Yeah. There was... Well, so by this point, I was already pretty well educated on things, but I was like, I don't know how they top Maximum Crisis. Like, I was
Maximum
like, this is
Crisis was a
it.
big one. Arc
Like,
5 was crazy.
I just remember, like, I remember reading Fat Grass Looks Greener and just going, this is it. Like, you can't get better than this. And then, funnily enough, Rise the Duelist was one of them like that, where I was like, this, you can't do better than this.
It was the
so
Dogmatica Albaz intro set,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that was pretty
Yep.
crazy too.
And then Eternity Code was also one of those ones. It was Eternity Code into that, and I was like, this is just like the craziest time of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's just like, we're done, right? Like,
Good card design.
pack it up and go home. And no, we didn't go home, and I was like, I guess we're still here. So,
Well, I know
yeah,
you've
there's been
got
a couple of
locals
times.
coming up. You've had this really
We have a little bit
wide
longer.
experience. Okay, good. You've had this wide
I can go
experience
for-
of Yu-Gi-Oh! Though. There are a lot of people out there you see, and they're grinding out the YouTube channel, and they're grinding out articles or everything. What words can you give them for those who feel like they're just like hitting the brick wall and they just want to keep going until they hit that point where maybe they get an opportunity to do some of the cool stuff that you've gotten to do? Like, what can you tell them just to hang in there?
So really quick, I have like another half hour if you want, by the way.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have like
Locals,
the crash thing on the thing. That's all.
No, locals is 8 minutes away from me.
Okay.
I moved 8 minutes away from my local. So blah blah blah. We'll answer this question now. A lot of it honestly just comes down to. Well, so it's weird. So this is also a life skill, networking.
Okay.
Just trying to meet people, but also within that is understanding that you won't get along with everybody. Good example being like there are some very well known players that I just don't talk to, and it's not for any bad reason. We just don't get along. Like we're fine with each other. We're always very polite. We're always really nice. I say hi every time I see them. We're just not friends. And they're fine enough people. We're just it's fine. But for me, it was a lot of networking. I just wanted to meet everybody. Like I'd go to events, I would meet people. If you ever see me at an event now, feel free to say hi. Chances are I'm going to look like I've been shell shocked and I'm like going through like flashbacks to the war. That is because of my crippling social anxiety, which most people don't know I have, which is really funny. Yeah, so that's why if you ever see me at an event, I'm hiding usually because I don't do big crowds. It makes me very uncomfortable. But Yu-Gi-Oh has helped with that even. Like you have to be exposed to big crowds. But for like writing articles and stuff, so I just enjoy writing. And I guess part of it is that I enjoy writing about stuff I enjoy. So the fact that I enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh is the perfect outlet, and it's a creative outlet. Just it's same thing with YouTube too, is to just do it. Like I don't have a particularly large channel. It's like 1,700 subscribers, I think. And that it's funny. Steven can vouch for this. There are days where I will go, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I just do not know like what video I'm supposed to make. And actually, Paul from Team APS gave me the best bit of advice because there was a video that I was like, I wanted to do that, and somebody else did it, so they already got like thousands of views. I don't want to just do it and then look like I'm copying them. And he goes, just do it. Like it. The thing with content creation and stuff like that is it's not like a zero-sum game. It's not like there's like a limited pie and then like every person that takes a bite of it you get less. It's just all there. So like just do it, and chances are it sounds awful, no one's gonna see it, so like who cares? That's something I remind myself a lot with some of my videos, that I'm like, I'll look back like, God, the video just sucked, and I'm like, well, luckily it got like 8 views, so no one saw it, so it's fine. Or there'll be ones that everybody saw and I'm like, that's the one that popped off, really? Like that one that I put no effort in? Okay. But that's also true of just playing in general, is to just do what you do. If you like writing about Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm gonna turn the camera here. If you like writing about Yu-Gi-Oh, write about Yu-Gi-Oh. Like there's no downside to it. If you like talking about Yu-Gi-Oh and yapping on camera, then slap on a camera and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh. If you like streaming, and that's how you feel like you can have a creative outlet that you want to do, just kind of do it. And then, like, it sounds weird, but like, this is also where I think a lot of my life experience in like business comes in, because I worked in hospitality at like the upper echelons. I was running like multi-billion-dollar or multi-million-dollars into billion-dollar hotels. The worst thing that you're gonna get ever is a no, but like, what does that do? It doesn't really hurt. Like, it might hurt your pride for a little bit. Like, you might be like, well, fine, but all right. So like, if there's a content creator you want to work with, just ask. Like a good example is, well, I mean, even Steven. First time we ever worked together was just me literally popping into one of his messages and going, "Hey, so I know you kind of know me. You want to bounce ideas sometime?" He's like, "Sure."
Yu-Gi-Oh,
But then
yeah,
for
man.
every yes I've gotten, even in like deck building, for every yes I've gotten, I've had like 1,000 people be like, "No, I'm good." Like,
We don't
I remember.
here, I'm sorry.
I remember the first time I walked up to Billy, who is like one of the nicest people ever. I was like, "Billy, can we playtest sometime?" He was like, "No, because I have a million other things going on, and it's nothing personal, but no." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And now every time I see him at events, we laugh and we get a good chuckle out of it. And then I remind him that I'm up on him in matches during his time. So take that, Billy.
It's a good way to get Billy to play you.
Yeah, take Billy. If you're watching this, I still have one up on you. It's 6-5. I'm keeping count.
6-5. We'll see if that ends up on a feature match in the future.
Please no. I think every feature. I don't think I've never actually won a feature match either. Fun fact. I've never won a feature match. I have horrendously misplayed in every single one of them.
So that's fair, actually. Given all your Yu-Gi-Oh stretch, is there like anything that's like, this is still the dream? I never got to do this, and I still would like to try. No wrong answers. It could just be like,
well, you know the answer to all of those. You know the answers to those, so thank you for that. My ego will just take a little bit of a bruise. There's a couple. As you guys might notice in the background, I have those awesome OTS store trophies.
Oh, wow.
I'm a big fan of those. Big fan, by the way. And I've always wanted to win more trophies. I had never won a trophy in anything. And I was varsity in sports. I was top of the line in the video games I've played in the past, as like a coach and as a player. But I've never won trophies. I've also never won an event. Outside of these. And my giant card. Shout outs to you, Arcana Triumph Joker. But I've always wanted to top a YCS, make top cut of a YCS. I've never done it. I've gotten really close, which is really funny because I made top cut of a WCQ, which for a lot of people they say is harder because that's like you have to earn your invites, you have to be serious, and then you're going out there, and everyone who's going out there, like they're definitely serious because they want to go to Worlds. But I've always wanted to win a trophy. Haven't done that yet. Which is actually why at the WCQ in 2022, 2022? It was 2023, because I played in 2022. I played 2022. 2023, they wanted us to do a picture for coverage, and they handed me the trophy, and they went, "We need this back." Because I just like sat there staring at it, and I'm like, I want this so bad. And I remember Billy walks over to me, puts his hand on my shoulder, he's like, "We need it back, Zach." And I'm like, "You really don't, though. Like, I really need one." So there's that. I've always wanted to top YCS just to do it because I love YCSs. I love regionals. I've also never won a regional. I've gotten second place a few times. I've never won. I don't win when it matters. I get like really close, and then I'm like, all right, I'm good. I don't win the event, though.
So obviously, not winning isn't sending you home. You're still like, nope, get back up on the horse.
Yeah, well, so it has a few times. There have been, it comes in hills and valleys. There have definitely been times where I've had to go back and apologize to people because I've been really frustrated after some events where, like, I felt like I deserved to win.
Maybe you activated the Seal of Orichalcos a little?
No. The best
That's
example
the card,
was...
I meant metaphorically.
Yes, actually. And then I'm sitting like, it should have been me! a good example is until this year, I had never won an OTS championship, which is really awkward because I've gotten second in every single one I've played at prior.
Oh, wow.
I had played in 16, and 16 times I got in second place, and I was like, this is insane. And it's become a running joke with my
So
friends.
do all of those up there, or is that just like second? I'm not trying to rub anything
No.
in. I was just curious
So
about that.
the first four on the right are all first place.
Okay, so
and there's four second
big
place
ones,
and
yeah.
one third place. Yeah.
Oh, so they're sized. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's still a really good run. There's
of-
a lot of duelists who would love those, dude.
Yeah, well, most of these are from like the store championships that we've had. One of them I flew out to North Dakota to see my best friend. Shout out to you, Aaron Thompson.
Aww.
I flew out to see him because I hadn't seen him in a while, and a store that we both really like up there was having their like grand reopening championship, and I flew out there and I actually won it, which is the very first one that I won, which is the Kaiba one. So that was really cool. But there have been some times where I've gotten really frustrated about it, and one of the things I've always wanted to do is win or do well at one of every type of event that I care about before I like hang up the sword to sorts. Like unsleeve my deck before I hang out my giant card and it's done. So one of them was the giant card. One of them is the WCQ. I've wanted to top that. Did that. I want to go to Worlds. Every year though, I accept more that it's not going to happen because every year it's not in a bad way. It's that there's less like. As I've gotten older, I've realized that time is a very like limited resource that I have, and I'm a dad. I'm in my 30s. I work. I've got all this stuff going on, in my personal life. I don't have the time to dedicate to competing as much. So there's a couple out there that like I'd love to go to Worlds. Don't think it's gonna happen. If I do, it'll probably be for Duel Links because one day I'll sit down and finally like really grind Duel Links again. I got really close one year at Duel Links. It was 2019. I got like 5th place in the WCQ qualifier, and it's because I took a nap.
I mean, that is part of the Duel Links experience. You got to be the whole weekend.
I took a nap at the end, so I was like, I'm locked in because I was locked into 3rd, and I was like, as long as this guy who's in 4th place doesn't win 3 matches in the next hour, I cannot lose. He won 3 matches, and then the guy behind him won 3 matches, so it knocked me to 5th place. And then the guy who ended up getting it couldn't go, so then went to 4th place. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! If I just hadn't taken this nap, I was going to go to Worlds." I was so upset. That was one of the times where I really got upset with myself.
Well, as a reminder, the Kaiba Corporation Cup is going to be next month, so you've got time.
It is. Yes, I need to build a deck for that. But there's a couple things I'd like to do. I would love to win a YCS. That's like the pipe dream. Especially because like some of my really close friends have tons of YCS wins between them, and they kind of all in good natured because they know that I'm okay with it now. They'll kind of rib me a little bit where I'm like, look at my trophies, and they're like, yeah, look at mine, and I'm oh, it's okay, I have one too. There's that, but most of the time now I think I have, especially in the last year, really found that I enjoy the game in a different way than I did before. Now it's more about getting to see other people enjoy it and I enjoy more of like the journey of the game as much more than I used to. Like it sounds horrible. When you've done something for like 22 plus years, at some point you fall out of love with it. Like you fall out of love with like
but you're
the
still
process.
Here.
Yeah, like it's still there. It's just different. Like you start to take some things for granted. Like the journey of learning a new deck. You've done it so many times, you're just like, well, whatever. Or after topping a bunch of regionals or YCSs, it starts to lose some of the luster because it becomes normal. Like if you ask Jesse Cotton, I guarantee you a YCS top now is not as exciting as it was when he topped his first one.
I will say, and Jesse knows this, my favorite moments at any tournament that Jesse wins is the brief moment after he wins to when the trophy happens and the smile finally cracks. I'm not saying anything bad about Jesse Cotton. I'm just saying that that moment where you still see that he cares about it and he can relax because he's won finally, that smile shows me I'm like, good, there's somebody who still loves this game.
Yep. And that, I mean, back to the OTS championship story. This year was a good example of that, actually. So last year was a really frustrating one, especially for me. Last year was frustrating in general. Like I was not having a good year competitively. I was flopping out of every tournament I played in for the longest time. I was like, man, I don't have it anymore. And I played my OTS championship and I got second place after being on an absolute just tear. I remember because I was playing this crazy Sprite Bestial deck.
Okay.
Like, and it was like a synchro deck with assault synchrons and Bestial disc pattern, and I was omega looping people's hands. Nobody was having fun but me. Like, but that's all that matters. I was playing on my Seal of Ori Calcos mat, so it was very thematically appropriate. And I was like, yeah, isn't this fun? And I got second place, and I was really upset because I got second place, and I didn't handle it the best. I was really frustrated because I felt like I deserved that win, and I was like, okay, I got to stop that. That's not fair. Because one of the things that comes up is, and this is a good way to look at those moments too, especially if you're younger. Not to make myself sound like back in my day, but that's how it feels.
We're all Grandpa Motos at this point.
Some of us sure feel like it. But one of the things that comes up, and I actually get asked this question a lot too, when people read my articles and they see some of my older competitive ones, like, how do you avoid tilt? And I'm like, well, now I just remember that I've been doing it for so long that, like, it's going to happen. Like, after, you play for over 2 decades, you realize you're going to have some bad tournaments. But one of the ones that comes up is that I remember that it sounds really weird. It's illogical to get that upset. Like,
fair.
And it came up when I coached in League, was that I remember one of the best players looking at me going, so why are you upset? I'm like, I just lost this game that I should have won. And he goes, yeah. And in a year, you will not remember that game. Mm-hmm. He goes, you will remember your reaction to that game, and you'll be embarrassed. You will not remember that game. And so ever since then, that's been like a huge boon. But this year was, I had told myself at the beginning of, well, not this year, last year, 2024, oh Lord. I had told myself I was going to be a much more positive influence on those around me.
Good.
Because I'd had some heart-to-hearts with some friends who were like, you've had a rough year, but, like, chill out, dude.
Sorry to hear that, by the way. I should laugh.
No, it's fine. They know who they are, and they'll watch this video and laugh at me, because I remember having the conversation where they're like, chill out. But I went to an OTS championship for Infinite Forbidden, and, as always, we make the joke, I'm like, yep, ready for second place. And I'm playing Millennium Exodia, and I had told myself to play that deck because it was fun. And I was like, I'm going to play this deck, I'm going to have fun. I'll get second place, it's fine. I'll get second place with something fun, at least. I won't have played a deck that I didn't want to play as much just to get second place and be upset. So, and also, this is when Tenpai was at full power.
Oh,
I hate that deck. I loathe that deck. There are very few decks that I didn't...
It fits thematically with what it's trying to be, because Tenpai literally is like one tile away from victory in the Mahjong game it's based after, so it's like the vibes are so good, but to actually experience that time after time, Tenpai after Tenpai, yeah, it can feel a little rough. I get you.
Well, so the frustrating part for me, and this is where, like, my time as, like, a game dev will come in, and you guys can laugh at this, is I look at things from the scope of, is it fulfilling as a player to play against, and is it fulfilling as a player to play? And does it create, like, joy to play against and to play? And I felt like, objectively, it didn't really tick all those boxes for me. I'm like, it's sure fun to play and win with. It's not fun to play and lose with. And it sure is fun to play against and beat, because you're like, yeah, take that, Tenpai player. It's not fun to open up with a hand of Effect Failure, Imperm, and then they go, Sangen summoning, summon Pydra, and you're like, cool. I also just drew a Nibiru. Well, that's useless. So, I mean, I also got it, though, because, like, those decks need to happen once in a while, too. I really do. I really do firmly believe that those kind of decks are good for the game every once in a while, because they kind of, like, they help players who maybe don't have quite as much experience get those wins, and they also remind players who have all the experience, like, chill out, dude. Like, it's okay. It's a game. Because it happens sometimes. But I remember I sat down for round 1, sit down, I see who I'm playing against, it's one of my buddies, and I know he's playing Tenpai, and I'm like, it's gonna be one of those days. It's gonna be one of those days. And then I win the die roll, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go first, and I just did my whole combo, and I win, and I'm like, today the day? And I go through Swiss and I win all of it. I'm like, all right, time to get second place. And we get to the final. Oh, actually, top 4 happens. And I win in one of the most anime moments for me ever, where I set 2 cards because I knew that he had a Cosmic Cyclone in his hand from the talents, from the Triple Tactic talent that I'd activate. And I was like, I have to pray and I have to put on an Oscar-worthy performance here. So I'm like shuffling my hand and I set the card that I don't want, or that I want him to hit. And then I kind of I look at the other card. I'm like, and I set it, and he activates Cosmic Cyclone, and I flick my hand towards the card I want him to hit, and I go, oh, so you're gonna hit that one, right? He goes, no, that one. He points to the one I wanted to hit. I'm like, oh my god, yes. So I win that one through like the best bluffs I've ever done in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then the finals happen, and I win game 1, just crush it. Because that was, I think I sent you that deck too, is my Fiendsmith Millennium deck, where I was like, any 2 monsters, it's just everything. And then Fiendsmith's Agdam Day came out, I was like, and now you get to play Desiree in the deck, which is just obnoxious. You get to end with Exodia, obliterate, or an Exiled fires a Rage Trap, and then you get to Agdam Day them on their turn. What did they do? It was so obnoxious. I love that deck. I can talk about the deck for hours. And then I look at my hand game 3, and I just see everything, and I'm like, if I lose this one, I'm going to cry. Because I opened up with, like, Dimensional Barrier, Ankh, Sengenjen, and just, like, Blue Eyes. It's like, I cannot lose this game. There is no way I lose this game. If I somehow manage to lose this, I am going to go sit in my room, and I'm going to dismantle my Millennium Puzzle and re-put it back together and dismantle it again and do that for the rest of my life. Because I quit, I retire, I will become the old guy who just like talks about like the war stories that no one wants to hear about. I'm like, okay, Grandpa. And then I win. And that was, of everything I've ever done in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that was I think probably the best moment. Was winning that one, because not only did I win it, but I won it with a very fun deck. I got to play the card that was on the mat, which is really cool. Heart of the Blue Eyes, which, if you're an anime fan, or actually if you're a manga fan specifically, you know the lore behind that card, which is really cool. But that was special, and it ties back into your question. Sorry to go on this like whole.
No, you're fine, man. That's why it's you and Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not me and Yu-Gi-Oh! It's you.
But you had asked, like, you know, like, what do I tell people? Or like, you know, when you want to, like, when you hit that glass ceiling, or you hit that wall, and you're like, well, I want to push through it. I remind myself of, like, when I've had successes, what made them successful. And it has always been, at least for me, looking at it through the lens of fun. Like, it's very cliche, but if I don't truly enjoy something I'm doing, it shows. It's funny too, because a lot of my greatest failures have been when I've been like, this is awesome and fun. It's hit or miss. But like my best articles were always when I was just enjoying it. And I was just like, just talking. My best videos have always just been when it was like an idea I was excited about. Like right now, I'm doing this series. It's called Back to Basics, where like it was right after the OTS Championship, and then I played in like one tournament. And I was like, I'm on top of the world. I'm an OTS champion. Not that really means anything, but it means something to me. And I went like 0-2 drop, and I was like, what just happened? Like I just won. How did I start losing? And I was like, I'm not playing like a champion. So the whole point of the series is to like get better at playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I play a lot, but it's like to focus on that. Where it'd be like learning different decks and like reviewing my play and stuff like that.
If I had to find a through line then from your mom dropping you off at like that first tournament and you winning the first one and just getting stomped afterwards, in your own words, and then going it down, it's just that like, if you're in this game for 22 years, individual duels, they matter, right? But overall, if you're having a good time, that's the thing you can control. You can guarantee that you're going to have a good time. And if you win, cool! And if you don't win, well, at least you had a good time, and just show up the next week and keep trying. Is that like the Zach experience?
Yeah, well, and shout-outs to Ed Exception for this one, actually, because I will never forget, like... So Ed and I became really good friends a few years ago, and there was one YCS where I just tilted off the face. Like, I could see the curvature of the earth from how far I had tilted. Ooh. I was so frustrated. I walked in, I was ready to go. I had like I thought the best deck in the room. I had been practicing for like a month every day for like 3-4 hours. It just was not my day. And I also, looking back, played really badly. But I barely missed out on day 2, and I just like stormed out of the building. I was so frustrated. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I was just like miserable. And he like looked at me and he goes, "Why are you so mad?" He goes, "You got to play Yu-Gi-Oh all day. Like that's what we're here to do." And I'm like, "Right, but I didn't win." And he's like, "Okay, but did you have fun in any of your matches?" I'm like, "I don't think so." He goes, "So why are you playing?"
Ooh.
And like that literally really resonated with me. He goes, "Dude, I want my friends to all be people who enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you don't enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't want you to be my friend."
That's a tough
and I was-
ultimatum, but he was trying to wake you up out of the fog.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh. Well, and my best friend in the world, Aaron Thompson, shout out to you again, has said that to me in different aspects of my life. Where he's like, I think you need to be reminded a little bit to like get back, like where you focus on the good stuff. And like all of the best stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh is always when people are enjoying it. Like the WCS, it's super serious. The World Championship is the most serious tournament of the year, but I don't know a single Worlds competitor that I have talked to that didn't just enjoy playing. Like even the ones who like went like 0-5, like because also I think part of it is that especially at that level you realize somebody has to do it, somebody has to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But like you get to have fun. Or like when I'm writing about topics, if it's a topic I don't want to write about that I don't enjoy, I'll talk to my editor and we'll sometimes I have to do it because that's life. But I generally stick to topics I enjoy. Decks, same thing, like I also think it's important too for people to realize that this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh that it was 10 years ago. In that like 10 years ago there was just Yu-Gi-Oh, like there was just one way to play Yu-Gi-Oh and that was it. Now we've got like Master Duel and Duel Links and Speed Duel, and even in Duel Links you've got Rush Duel, and then in Master Duel you've got like the events, and you can like cubes have become a thing now that people do. I've seen people do Master Duel cubes, which is one of the craziest things ever. Yeah, they will cube out in Master Duel. And like there's also just enjoying the fandom in different ways. Like Yu-Gi-Oh has expanded beyond what it is. So like whatever it is that you enjoy about the like not in the game, the brand, that's what I would focus on. Whether it be like some of the judges I know don't particularly like to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but they love to help people play Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm like, I don't get that. Like, I want every time I see somebody play Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm like, I need to do that. Like, let me get in there. I've judged a few events, but then the whole time I'm sitting there like, I'm jealous. All these people are playing the game. Like, let me get in there. I remember the 250th YCS, I was a feature match judge, and the whole time I'm just sitting there like, this is so cool. I'm watching people play Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm getting paid for this. This is the greatest day of my life. Or like, people enjoy cosplay or it'd be collecting and then just do that. So like, you see people who like their whole YouTube channel is, I enjoy collecting cards. Let me show you my collection.
Yeah, nothing wrong
or
with
like,
that. No wrong way to enjoy it.
For me, it's like, I enjoy learning. So let me bring you on the journey of learning. And, I think it's important to not try to put yourself into whatever role you think is gonna work, but just do what you enjoy doing, because like if you're miserable it will translate to that. If you're not enjoying and passionate about what you're doing, it'll translate to that. If you don't enjoy playing current modern format Yu-Gi-Oh but you enjoy an older format, then play an older format. If you enjoy playing Rivalry of Warlords and just playing these like wacky zany decks that like
yeah.
no human being besides R&D put together, and you're like,
hey, I play like half of those decks.
So do I can't judge. But like that's actually a good example was Rivalry of Warlords. I remember was a concept that had been talked about when I was still there. And then I got to play in one, and I played Dual Avatar.
Oh, that is such an interesting deck that I feel like it never shows up. Like, I'm sure there's some Dual Avatar stands that are going to be, like, writing me hateful comments, and that's okay. I'm sorry to offend. But it's true that Dual Avatar is a deck that is so neat, and I didn't see it anywhere, really, until Duel Links, because it's a great 20-card deck for Duel Links. But when you go to Rivalry of Warlords, it's kind of like a blind date. They're like, this may be the next love of your life. And you're like, oh, no, I'm a Dual Avatar fan, and I didn't know it.
That literally is what happened to me. Was I sat down, I played in Rivalry because I was like, this is a cool event. Like, I don't want to play Modern Constructed. They handed me a dual avatar deck, and I'm like, this deck is crazy. And I
It is
started walking to
good.
my friends like, have you read these dual avatar cards? And they're like, no. I'm like, let me tell you, because I now have after playing them for 4 rounds in a row, and I didn't lose a single game. So like, these are crazy. And then I played another one. They gave me Armed Dragons, and I'm like,
All
I don't
right.
even need to read this sheet. I know everything. Trust.
I
It
still
did
haven't
not
gotten
go
that
well.
experience yet. I'm always hoping to pull Magic or Amazement, which are two decks that I've like played in like advanced format regional
They're
tournament.
gonna hand you tunes.
I don't. Well, I mean, I didn't really get to. I would love tunes, but I always get something not like bad, but just like, oh, that wasn't what I was in the mood for. And then you find yourself in the mood for it. Like that's how I got introduced to Sulfachord actually. And I'm like, oh, this is the most information I have ever seen on the table at once, and it is great. I'm just gonna confuse my opponent by playing the cards as they are. So
Yep.
fun.
Then like there's that, or one of the things that um I had done and didn't really enjoy too much. Now I love them. Were 3v3s.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I had played in the 3v3 in 2020, and then I think that's actually when I ever played it for YCS, and it was okay. I just didn't have a team, so it wasn't like the most fun. But I got introduced to a pretty good friend through that, and then I did it as a coverage writer, and that was super fun. Um, but then my local, we have case tournaments, and they're always 3v3s.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and the first one that we did, two of my really good friends now actually, also didn't have teams. So we just kind of were like, well, we know you're all like we know each other, and we're cool, and so we'll team up. And then we ended up like winning,
Nice.
and then we made like a group chat, and now like we talk all the time. And it's always really funny because we're always just like on some really wacky decks. Like I'll play Exodia in one. I played a Snake Eye Ogdoadic deck once. Like
I
I'll
don't know how to
just like
pronounce it either. Don't worry.
I don't think anybody does.
Ogdoadic is what I'm saying. I don't think that's any better.
Who knows? The snake things.
The snake things. It's the year of the snakes.
The snake's reign. But there's just always something, and I think it's really cool that we're at a point now where the game has gotten so big, and just the brand has gotten so big that no matter what it is you're interested in, like there's somewhere to do it. Like one of the things that Steven and I have talked about doing in the past is commentary, because I love talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! He loves talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Someday we'll do commentary together. I like doing character duels, which is something most people don't know because I don't ever do them on camera. Is
Yeah,
one
I
of my
didn't know
favorite
that
things
at all.
actually is. Yeah, I love building character decks. Like I'll go on the wiki and I'll find the deck lists and I'm like, building that today. Terrible, awful deck.
Oh, usually, yeah.
Funniest, funniest games of my life.
If they're like biblically accurate character decks, if it's just like you're going in,
Yes.
if they don't run it in the episode, you don't get to play it. Even if they obviously would, because you've seen episodes where they're like trade cards, open packs, even sometimes cards get stolen. But if you play just from the show, it is so wild, so wild.
Yeah, like there was one where I was at a regional and me and my friend were playing, and I played Little Yugi's deck, and I beat him with Silent Magician level 8. And I'm pretty sure that is the only time that card has ever been summoned outside of a video game. Like,
I mean,
ever.
I gotta raise my hand as the cosplay kid here, but yeah,
I don't
it's
know
rare.
how I managed it. It was the craziest thing.
Because you had to get the 5 counters, and you actually like did the thing.
Yes.
Nice.
And then there was one time where I went to a local, and there was a bunch of people hanging out, and they didn't really want to play Modern anymore. And so I walked up, and I bought a Speed Duel GX box. No, not GX. It was a Battle City box. I was like, cool. We will play these 8 decks exactly as they are built. We will not change a card. And so we played 8 character duels, and it was the funniest thing ever, because you don't know how ridiculous it is until you yell Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast like 8 times in 5 seconds. Because I summoned it, and then every time I would do anything with it, I would have to say its full name. But that's, I feel like oftentimes what ends up happening is that like that's when you find the most successes, because you enjoy it. But then also a reality check that like I have to give myself every year, is that you're going to hit a low point usually right before that too, where like you hit that ceiling and it's really frustrating. You're like, I can't figure it out. Um, and for me that happened, and I will never forget this. Actually, this is when I learned I had anxiety. It was 2017, the WCQ. I had practiced for like 3 months with Pure Zodiac because I had gone to the UDS in Las Vegas and I finished just outside of top 16, and I was really upset about it because that's where they get the really cool cloth mats, and it was a Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, and I loved it. Didn't get it. I was really upset, and I blamed myself because I played Pure Zodiac when I told myself I should play the Lightsworn deck, and I was like, no, I should have played. I'm going to play Pure Zoo. It's a safer deck. Of course, one of the people I lose to is playing the Lightsworn deck.
Ooh,
like,
that's always hard when you're like, oh, what I could have been. It was right there.
Yep. And I genuinely, at one point, I knew his hand card for card without looking at it based on how he was playing, and I was like, yeah, I played this deck for months now, and I just put it down for no reason. And so I get to the WCQ, and Friday, before I register, I start playing in some side events and stuff just to get some more practice, and they all go horrendously. Just terribly. Like, awful.
And which deck is this with, just to verify?
This is with Pure Zodiac.
With Pure Zodiac, okay.
And I remember I got really just like, I was just mind blown. It's like, did I just waste like 2-3 months practicing for nothing? Like, I feel awful. I don't think I'm good at this game. Now one of my best friends, who, just to go on a really quick tangent here, who I grew up reading, who is also my editor at TCG Player. Shoutouts to you, Jason. I actually have a TCG Player catalog somewhere with his like one of his first articles ever from like 2003.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so he's been writing for a while, for a hot minute. And he was somebody who wrote on Metagame, and then he writes on TCG Player. He works with Konami. If you ever see him at an event, just know he knows more about Yu-Gi-Oh than almost anybody alive, because he has worked at Konami and with them. He has worked with everybody. He's been around. He is the block. When you go around it, you're just going around.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, you're just going around.
He's definitely a legend.
And he and I had like really just started to become good friends, and I had posted something about how I was like really frustrated, and he messaged me. He's like, dude, worst case scenario, you're gonna have an awful event anyway, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, because you suck, right? I'm like, yeah, okay, you're not helping me. I don't know what the point of this is. He goes, so just play whatever deck in your bag is the most fun. Screw it. I'm like, okay, sure. So I play Lightsworn, and day one, I remember signing up with it. That was also the first event, if I can. It's too far away. Where they gave out the attribute dice.
Yeah.
I have the full set of them, and it was the first one that they ever gave away. And I got the dark one, which is funny because it's my favorite attribute. Seal of Orichalco's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I remember getting that one. I was like, okay, well, this is cool. I guess I got this cool die, and actually in that gold sarcophagus up there is a Memorial Edition deck box, and inside that is the exact pack of sleeves that I got from that event that have never been opened. And I had never made it past round 5 of the WCQ, like with a potential topping record, like ever. And I was like, all right, I just want to make it past round 5. Round 5 happens, I'm like, still in this. What's going on? Round 8 happens, I get a feature match, and I finally lose. I'm like, that's fine. Like, who cares? Day 2 happens. Okay, we've made day 2. And I'm just having a blast. I'm just playing Yu-Gi-Oh! To play it. Like, I don't even care. Like, it sounds awful. One of the things you'll hear really good players say is, like, better have it. And that just means, like, you better have the out. Like, you better draw it, because if you don't, you're going to lose. I was putting everybody on better have it with every single play I was doing. It's like, I don't even care if you have it. I'm going to keep going. Like, what's the worst that happens? I'm playing with house money anyway. Who cares? Day 2 happens, and I'm just crushing people, and I lose again. I'm like, I don't even care. I'm X2. I don't know how I did this. I'm probably out. Get 19th place. I'm like, we did it. This is the greatest day of my life. Second to my daughter being born.
All the fathers in the chat are like, about that though.
Love you, kiddo. She'll probably watch this too.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great.
Love you,
so
kiddo.
what I'm seeing here, and this is also kind of a Konami reference. Are you a Metal Gear fan at all?
Yes.
You remember Metal Gear Solid 3? All the baddies are like named after the emotion they bring into battle. It sounds like your ideal emotion is to be the joy.
Yes.
Which is the boss.
Well, it's
right?
funny. And then, I lose in top 32, and everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I don't even care. This is awesome. I got a prize card. I got sleeves. I'm a big fan of sleeves. I got my die. I got to do well with a crazy deck that everybody said was unplayable. I got to play That Grass Looks Greener, which is one of my favorite cards because it just breaks deck building like rules and conventions. I played Left Arm Offering, which is an anime card. I was like, this is the greatest day of my life. But that was like, a super high, and that came after really having a low, and that's going to happen, especially when you hit those glass ceilings. Like right now, creatively, I'm at one. I feel like I've kind of plateaued right now. Where I'm like, not getting a lot of channel growth, not getting a lot of views. What do I got to do? And so, like the part of it just kind of comes like you're in the trenches there. You kind of just have to like trust the process, and like. It's really easy when that happens to forget like why you're there. And so I think it's important to focus on that. Like really quick. Really last tangent example is so I have my little trusty Yu-Gi-Oh notebook. I have a bunch of these. I need more. This is my last unused one.
Yeah, it's nice. I've never seen one of those.
Really? Yeah, these were given out at
that.
these were the I think the school duel.
Like okay, that's why. That's why.
Yeah, you can only get these through that. I just happened to pick up a bunch in the past.
That's neat.
But I always do like a fearless inventory of. We're just gonna close that. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
But no,
just had to write out more of that.
I always just do like a little thing at the beginning of every notebook. And like once a year, especially at the beginning of the year, I'll like look back at like what I've done well and what I think I could be doing better. And it's just like, it's typically just for me where I'm like, these are the things that like, if I pull back like the mask of like ego and like, like you don't want to look foolish in front of your friends or whatever. When you pull back like all of those layers, like this is what I think I'm doing right. This is what I feel like I'm not doing as well as I could. So that's what I'm going to work on. And that helps me to remind myself that like fun is the focus, because a lot of the times if you're competitive, you get so caught up in like people want to be the next Jesse, people want to be the next insert whatever top player you want here. But like that success doesn't necessarily come from being the next whoever. It comes from being just like whatever you do. And like that was a really hard lesson to learn, was that, when I was younger, I wanted to be like the next like Bolito brother, or at one point like I looked up to Michael Kohanen because he was really good. He was on a tear. 2009 was his year. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then like that didn't happen. I got really frustrated. I, realized that like my success wasn't from copying their success. It was from like learning from it, and you could take aspects of it, but then like adapting it to whatever you're trying to do. So if like you're trying to be a content creator, you definitely like take inspiration and, sometimes do the same ideas, but like find whatever's been working for you and then just do that. Sometimes it's stuff that like you don't expect to, like, I had this series of shorts that was like the rare hunt, and it was just I wanted to show people cool stuff that they've probably never gotten to see before, because it's like YCS prize cards. They're, when you play competitively and you play like around all these top players, you see them all the time, and you kind of like you live in this bubble where you forget that like not everybody has seen those. Like,
there's only like maybe 100 of them in the world. Granted, you've probably seen 90 of them in the room, but it's still so special, and it's like a special class, the likes of which is like from the anime, where it's like, wow, that's one of the 4 Blue Eyes White Dragons. That's one of the only prize, Shrink or Crush Card Virus or one of those, yeah.
Right, or like, I've played with a few of them, and it gets to the point where like you kind of forget that they're really rare and special, or like even UDS cloth mats. Like Yu-Gi-Oh's only had a few cloth mats. You kind of forget how unique they are because you just see it all the time. You're like, yeah, it's just kind of a dime a dozen. Like I have it, so it must not be that uncommon. But then, you think about it, and there's like hundreds of thousands of people to millions of people through Master Duel who play the game who have never actually seen these cards or like these special items like the UDS belts. I've gotten to hold and mess with each of them. Most people have never seen them, so I recorded that, and that was like super successful. Or like going back to Seal of Orichalcos, there is a unofficial Seal of Orichalcos with the anime effect that
Oh, I
was
know
made
which one. Yeah, from the
back in
previous
like
company.
2009.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very expensive, like tens of thousands of dollars
Mm-hmm.
expensive. And I happen to know most of the people who own them. And even for me, before this, I had only seen like one ever in my life. And one of my friends was like, I have three, I'll bring them for you. And I got to show everybody, like, this is like probably the rarest card you'll ever see. There's like 15 of these in the world. And I'm holding three. So that was just something really cool. And like people loved that. And so now I'm trying to remind myself, like, when I have these like creative ruts where I'm like, maybe I should show people some of the cool stuff that I have laying around that like not everybody has. Cause like, let me just look really quick. I'm looking through a box here to see if I had anything just like laying right at the top that I can show people. Oh, well, here's a good example. Don't fall. This deck box is one that they gave out at the World Championship. It is for the 25th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh! It is the only one like it, and it's just opens up like that. It's just a cool little deck box.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Or like unique cards, or playmats, or like OCG products, because I love that sort of stuff. Just kind of stuff that for me I take for granted because I have it, and then I remember people don't. Or like, I open my desk drawer here because I keep all these like sitting here, like World Championship sleeves. These are really expensive. People don't get to see them often.
And you
Or
just
these
have that in
ones.
their desk drawer. Like,
I
hey,
just-
let me just
I
pull
have
out
them
this
sitting in my desk
one-of-a-kind
drawer.
thing.
Yeah.
No,
Or
I do know
like
what
the
you mean on
dice.
that. Yeah.
And it's just cool to share that with people, or like accessories, giant cards. They're really common now, but each one has its own story. And I got to be fortunate enough to work behind the final curtain, so I know certain ones, like how many there are. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool that you have that. By the way, if there's ever a giant Orichalcos, I will win it.
Okay.
I don't
We'll play
care.
this video
I
back
w-
when that gets given out.
I will win it. I will, like, I don't even care if I go to an event someday and they put that on the prize wall. I'm not playing in the main event. I will play just to get a giant Orichalcos. I don't care what I have to do. I will do it. Or like that little uncut sheet up there.
Oh, yeah, I see
That's
that.
an uncut sheet of cards. Most people don't get to see those. The little black box in between them is a Master Duel pack of sleeves that
Oh, those are so nice.
is really cool. It's just cool stuff like that. And like that for me is the stuff I'm excited about, like my Yu-Gi-Oh notebooks, or like I have somewhere I have like the official OTS backpacks. Judges get cool backpacks. Judges get some of the coolest stuff.
Well, they do give up their tournament experience, as you said yourself.
They do.
You're just sitting
They
there and you're
do.
like, man, I really would love to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's how you know those judges love Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're a competitor
Yes.
watching this. Because you're there at like 6 or 7 a.m. and then you're there all the way till almost midnight, and then you as the competitor are walking back to the hotel and you see the judges playing because they've got like 20 hours of Yu-Gi-Oh! In their
Yup.
system, but they didn't touch a card, so they want to play.
Yup.
I feel that.
Or like they're in a bin over there, so I'll do another video sometime. I have like these two giant storage totes of mats that I have just kept. And there's like stories behind them. And so like, it might not be the most exciting to people who just want to see like insert cool combos here, but if you're somebody who just like likes seeing cool Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, like that's cool to you. Really quick, let me see if I can find an example. No, this deck box. This is an OCG deck box. This is the very first OCG deck box I ever bought from Arc 5. Somehow it is still in like pristine condition, given that it's traveled all over with me. I use it every once in a while, but they don't make these over here for us, so they don't get to be seen. Or like, let's see, old video game promos like Spell Striker, like they don't make those anymore.
Oh, I forgot Spell Striker was a video game promo actually for such an influential
like,
caller. Yeah.
Graceful Dice, Skull Dice. Those are from the anime. Everybody knows that, but they're also video game promos and like that. Or like, everybody knows about OTS tournament packs. But like, I just tweeted this the other day. One of my favorite cards shout out to the anime, is Magical Stone Excavation.
Oh, so
This
good.
was
Is that the
originally
Champion Pack?
released. Yes, this is originally released in Champion Pack 2.
Dude, oh yeah, that was. Remember how good that was at the time, and nobody had it because again, you're right.
Yes.
It was that official card, and we do get face blind as duelists, especially due to digital dueling. Right? You see the card, you're just like, that's the effect, that's the picture. You forget that like somebody had to go out there and like win and get the champions packs and open the champions packs and find the card and decide this is my copy. This goes in my sleeve. This goes in my deck box.
Yeah, or like so. A really good one. I love this mat. This is one that I love to use. So if you ever see me at an event, chances are I'm probably playing on this one. This is just a plain blue Yu-Gi-Oh mat, right? This was given out as a pre-registration gift to Duelists. I want to say at YCS London in 2017.
Oh wow,
Maybe it's 2018. I don't remember. But I saw it and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I bought it off of somebody who had went because I was like, oh, it's really cool. I love mats that are really simplistic. Like I love my really busy, cool mats and stuff. But I also, when I'm playing, I want it just to be not distracting. And, you know, I don't want to sit there like drooling over how cool the artwork is the whole time as I'm sitting here trying to send my opponent into the Seal of Ori Calicos. You know, it's hard to do that. Which is why I use my steel mat because I'm like, I've seen this 1,000 times. I look at you every morning. Ha ha! You're on my cell phone background. But that is actually, funnily enough, the only event they ever gave these away.
Yeah.
They just never gave them away again.
You're right.
So
There's not a lot of plain mats. I think there's like that. There's like a Yu-Gi-Oh Day mat that's kind of similar, where it's just hexagonal shapes. Because Reigns loved hexagons. There might be like the remote duel invitational mats, where it's just like black and white, and that's it.
That's actually not even the remote duel invitation mat. That's just called the stream mat. So this is behind the curtain a little bit for you guys. This is something that I know I can talk about. Don't worry.
Secrets revealed.
Is that one was just called the stream mat. It didn't have a name.
Oh, okay.
We just called it the stream mat. And the reason why was because the previous remote duel mat, which I also have somewhere, was cool, but it was busy. It had
the Alistair, the Invoker one?
No. Well, so there was that was a prize mat.
Okay.
But the original remote duel invitational mat just had like the Vagabond and the Duelists.
That's right,
on it.
yeah.
And it was cool, but it was still a lot to look at through a camera. So what they did was they simplified it and they just made a plain black mat with the zones and then the remote duel logo on it. The idea being that when you're looking at it on camera, it's not going to take away from what you're looking at. And that's one of the very few like really plain mats, or like the Judge Rainbow Hieroglyph mat. Very similar. It's just the hieroglyphs, the Judge logo, and the zones, and that's it. And I love those kinds of mats. But that's sort of the kind of stuff, like the stream mat or even that Judge mat, a lot of people don't get to see because a lot of people, even if you play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think this is something people need to remember too, is you're in a niche within a niche. So like Yu-Gi-Oh, big brand. Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh seems like it's big, but compared to the greater Yu-Gi-Oh, it's really small. Like, it's really, really actually pretty small. Which is why when, you hear people criticize products sometimes, I'm like, well, okay, you're forgetting that, like, you're a very small fish in a very large pond, I promise. And they're like, no, we spent all the money. I'm like, trust me, I worked there. No, you don't.
Oof. Well, get on
little
it,
Timmy,
like
little Timmys that go to that go to Target, their moms that spend like $5 on a booster pack. There's a lot of those. And they're the future, so we got to keep them. But so people, you forget that you're like in a niche, and even within that, so like there's competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, which encompasses anything from locals all the way up to the WCS. That's a very broad spectrum. And then you get even further in the niche where you're like, well, I go to YCSs. So now you're even in a smaller space. And then it's like, well, I'm really competitive within a space. And now it's even smaller. So like each step has stuff that like to you isn't special because you see it all the time. But to somebody who doesn't experience it is pretty unique. Like, so judging, same thing. Whole bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh players, okay? Then you have to be a competitive player at some point or have been to tournaments, and you're like, you know what? I like judging. So now you're super niche, and then you're like, well, I want to judge regionals. You get smaller. Go to the YCS, it's even smaller. And that's why, for example, like the judges who judge the World Championship, they're like the best of the best, and they deserve to be recognized as such because they really work hard. But all the stuff that you get, like that we mentioned, like judges get, like in Steven's background, you see all those cool deck boxes and stuff.
Oh, I tried to get out of the way when the camera's following me.
You can get those for, topping regionals or for judging, depending on, how you get them. Like, I have a bunch from events that I've worked at, but, like, each step, you forget. Like, even those deck boxes, like, I have one sitting on my computer desk right here that is sealed, that I'm giving away to somebody. I don't know who yet. But I keep one on my desk, and I take it in my car to locals, and every time there's a kid there, I'm like, you can just have it.
No, you're right. For me, each of these has been a memory from an event that I've been at. So, like, that's the reason why I kept everything. I'm weird in the sense that I don't trade or sell anything that I got from somebody. So, like, if I open up in a booster pack and I pull it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Okay, that can go. But if Yama Yugi himself walks up and he's got a Wing Karibo and he's like, something just tells me this belongs with you, I'm gonna keep that Wing Karibo for the rest of my life. And that's how this stuff like ended up in this sort of museum.
Those binders that I was flipping through, there's a couple other binders I have squirreled away too, and some of the cards in those binders too are like gifts that like I've got. I was like, okay, cool. I have a rule where if somebody gives me something as a gift, it stays with me.
Same deal.
So I have like forbidden cards that I will never get to play again.
Maybe there's Time Wizard, right?
Maybe. Brilliant Fusion would be nice to play again. But I have a bunch of like old forbidden cards and stuff that are like, well, these probably won't ever see the light of day again, but they're stuck with me. Or like my Fire Formation 10 keys, I have the Duelist League purple ones.
Oh, with the name.
I've had those same ones for like 10 years, and I will not use another set. Whenever that card is playable, I play those. But even like within the spheres of getting stuff, so like there's different tiers to this stuff. So like judging is. Most locals have a judge, so then that's cool. But then the regional judges, they get like those cool lanyards, they get sleeves. That's something a lot of judges don't even get to see. And then you go to a YCS, you get your judge shirt. Eventually, you get the judge backpack and the binder and stuff. And there's cool dice. Shout outs to the judge program. And then you go to the WCS, and last year they got exclusive dice that are like metal, and it's super cool.
Oh, the gravity dice, yeah, and they're like they've got the little judge logo on it. Oh, those are so cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And so like, I like stuff. Like I just like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I just like to look at Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. So when I've hit this creative rut, I'm like, I'm just gonna show people my stuff, and it's not like in a braggadocious way. It's like, look how cool this stuff is. Like, or World Championship mats, actually. That is the best example. This last WCS, they sold a Grandopolis playmat.
Oh, yeah. Like the one that was based on the original Vegas one from 2013. It's like the turtle with like the city on its back. It's such a cool design.
Those mats are not common. Like, so you have to think of all the duelists, only like 25 to 30 get to play in a year at the WCS. And then the judges get them, and maybe some of the other staff will get them. So there's like maybe 50 of each one in the world. So they're very, very, very rare. Like I have a World Championship mat here that I love to use. It's with this guy. I have 15 of these. I have 15 of these for you. But like, to see something like that is really rare. And so it's nice that they're finally kind of opening it up, and they made it so that you can buy it, but they made it different. So you knew like, okay, cool, you're celebrating the World Championship, but it's not the one that the duelists got.
Yeah, it's like a replica, like but you're not taking anything from them. Yep. You get to see the cool art, but you don't take their memories from them.
And like, one of my friends who goes to my locals, he got to go to the World Championship. He got second place this year. Shout out to you, Mark. And he brought, stuff back, and he showed me. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I just remember like gushing over every single thing. I'm like, this is so cool. Like all of these mats, your jersey, the sleeves, the tokens, the deck bot, like everything is so cool. But then, I forget because I see him every week. Most people don't get to see that.
Yeah,
most people don't get to see. Most people don't get to see World Championship sleeves every week. Most people don't get to, roll World Championship dice or play on a World Championship mat. And I think that's, for me, the cool thing is getting to show people that. Because it's just, like, oh, that's some cool stuff. And a lot of the times, people don't even know that stuff exists because it's so rare. Like I played on my UDS mat. I only play on it at charity tournaments now, because at least then when I'm sending somebody into the Seal of Ori Calcos, I feel like I'm doing it for a good cause. So
It's funny.
I feel good
You're
inside.
an evil hero, right? Evil hero.
I'm lawful evil. It's fine. I am an evil hero. But like I sat down and one of the players who he's been playing for a couple of years, but he had never heard of the UX. He's like, "What is that map?" And I told him about it. He's like, "That's so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, this one glows in the dark." He's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
And
the glow in the dark's insane.
and he's like, "That's the coolest thing ever. Why don't they do that more?" I'm like, "Because it's special. What do you mean?" Like, that's what it's. That's why I have it. So, if you're hitting a point where you're like at your glass ceiling, just sometimes just taking a look back at being like, well, what like brought me here? Like, what was I enjoying that I hit this growth and now I've stopped? And I feel like a lot of the times you'll find that you like deviated from what it was that was originally like propelling you, whether it be like like you changed from writing about like cool alternate formats to like, well, here's what's happening in Ryzeal this week. Oh man, look at the crazy innovation here. People are playing 2X'd and 2-sword Ryzeal now instead of 3. Whoa! Some people don't enjoy reading about that. I do, but some people don't. Or
it's
like
nuance. You're right that it's like it's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche, because you've got everybody who's like, I love Yamayugi and Seto Kaiba, and you're like, well, I actually play the game. Well, I play the game hardcore. Well, I play the game really hardcore. Well, I opened up 3 cases of crossover breakers and have a full collector's rare set of this, and I'm going to use it. Well, I'm actually good with those cards. Like it just fuddles down.
And then you get the one guy who's like, I just have them. I don't actually even play with them. They're just
That's
cool
fine.
looking. And there's like the guy in the corner who's like, I just collect them because they're shiny. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you. Good for you, man. But that's important to find what it is that you were enjoying and to stick to it, because I think a lot of the times what happens is like you start off playing Yu-Gi-Oh, like you're like, oh, I love the show, or oh, I saw somebody streaming it or whatever, and then you start playing it, and then I feel like what happens is everybody dips their toes into competitive gaming, and sometimes you'll be like, I'm sticking to it. But then what happens is like you stick to it and you realize maybe it's not for you, but you feel like you've sunk time into it, so you got to stick to it. And then like that's where a lot of people, I feel like there's people who like they love the idea of being like the competitive good player, like good in the sense that like everyone's like, oh, I know who that person is, like that's insert top player here. I feel like everybody at some point wants to be that. And then it takes like a certain level of like self-awareness to go, yeah, but that's just not fun to me. Like I don't want to spend 3 hours every day, practicing Ryzeal mirror matches, or I don't want to spend, insert exorbitant amount of money to fly across the country to go sit there and play Yu-Gi-Oh all day. Like that just doesn't sound like the most fun to me. And then I think it's important for people to go, okay, well, what do I like about this game? And then you just stick to that. Like, I know there are some people I know who they only play Master Duel.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exclusively. No, and they're just like, I like Master Duel. I'm like, okay, cool. I like all of it. And they're like, yeah, but I just like Master Duel. I'm like, okay. Or one of my really good friends, he only plays Duel Links.
Good for him.
He's never watched the anime. Never watched the anime.
He's never watched the anime, but he loves. That's even better for him.
Yeah, he randomly downloaded it one day from the App Store, and he just plays Duel Links. Always finishes top like one.
Brutal competitive Yu-Gi-Oh ever. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm one of the killers." Like play Duel Links. It is such. Well, I mean, we were talking about it earlier. It is rough. It's very intense.
It is hard. But like he always finishes top 100 of every Kaiba Corp Cup. Like he's really good. He just does it casually. He's like, I don't care enough to like really take it seriously, but I just have fun with it. I'm like, okay, can I be that good? Like. Where? Or there are people who just enjoy going to events just to hang out. I keep telling it's a running joke
to do that because it's like a Yu-Gi-Oh anime convention, because especially at the end of the WSUQ, you've got like the photo booth and all the side events, and now they've have like all these pop-up shops, and I'm saying pop-up shop instead of just like vendor in the Yu-Gi-Oh sense, because they're not just selling cards anymore, they're selling like the plushies and
everything.
Merch.
Yeah. Like this year they were selling coasters. Like
they did have branded coasters. Yeah.
And I was mad I didn't buy them because I was like, well, okay, but what's on them? And then I found out later one of them was the Seal of Ori Calcos. I'm like, I could have had a seal coaster.
What do you mean? To the secondary market.
So now, no, now I have to. I know the shop, and I messaged. I was like, "Can you maybe hook me up with some of those coasters?" And they're like, "Yeah, we got you."
Okay, good.
But it's stuff like that, or you go to an event and you just enjoy watching people play. Just do that. Have that be your thing. And there's even like areas at the venue where you're allowed to record, so you can make your content. Or like if you're a blogger, you can just bring around your laptop and write as you go. Like there's tons of stuff to do. I think people just need to remember to like focus on what it is that they're enjoying in the game, because like it's very cliche to say it is a game, but like not even just a game, it's a hobby. Like
yeah, the lifestyle.
Very even within like we're talking about the niches, even within the niches of the people who like get paid to do stuff within it, there's even fewer of us who get paid and really make it like your whole life. And even within that, a lot of the times you are being constantly reminded, like, dude, it's okay just to focus on what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least once a year, my articles, I hit a point where I'm like, I need to write about something that just isn't serious at all. There was one of my best articles was literally me just talking about one of my favorite memories, which was decks that made people lose their minds.
I have to go look that up.
Like, you would sit down, and the moment you realized you were playing against the deck, you were just so upset. You were like, really? Like, you are playing... And, like, number one was, like, Teledad, which was 2008, September. Yeah. I remember I was, like... I was in high school. I was a sophomore. And I remember sitting down, and anytime my opponent was playing Teledad, I was like, of course, you have the money to play Teledad. Whatever. And I was just, like, so snarky about it. Even though I was also playing it.
Let me hide my cream then.
Or you'd sit down, and you'd see, like, your opponent playing Cleafort, and you're like, oh... You would be playing that deck. Or like Ritual Beast. That's one that always makes me mad. I'm like, you would... I don't want to spend 15 minutes watching you fill out my tax forms.
That's the most anime lines ever, by the way. And I always try to remind people that like the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Has panned out right now, we finally are living in the anime. You can't do all the Yu-Gi-Oh!
We really
once.
are.
You gotta like pick which character you are and then just live your best Yu-Gi-Oh! Life.
Well, and it's interesting. In the last like 7-8 years, we've hit, I think, this critical break point where now the floor for entering competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Has never been better for people who just want to play whatever cool deck they want to play. Like, sure, at the YCS level, you can't realistically walk in and be like, I'm gonna play Magic Key and win this YCS.
Hey, I tried, but then I ended up doing Shadow Duels coverage. Magic Key Prime Smith is a thing. But
I'm saying, like, realistically, you probably won't.
It's an uphill battle. And there's a lot of bricks when you're running 8 normal monsters of different types and attributes.
Or, like, using my example for myself, like, I can't walk into a YCS and realistically go, so I'm going to play Armed Dragon today. Chances are I'm going to walk out with another Versalaria. No big deal. Chances are it's not going to happen.
Did you know that this week in Duel Links, Armed Dragon is like a necessary inclusion in the top deck?
Yes.
Okay, you did. Okay, it's hero stuff. I'm sorry, it's Jaden Yuki stuff. But yeah, then I think next week we're getting the additional Armed Dragon Thunder support and Armed Neo. So it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time.
My gems are ready.
Yeah, my gems are ready. I'm like, okay, let's
Don't
go
worry.
on the home shopping network here.
But like, or we've also hit a point where like different types of decks are seeing success. Like we are very far away from the days when there was like 4 good decks.
Yeah.
Which I think is good for everybody. I really do. I am a very big proponent of the idea that there is a break point to where there's too many decks competitively. But I think that there is a point. I think it is a higher number than most people would expect, but it's a lower number than just every deck should be good. Because then it's hard to have like your identity. If everybody's awesome, then it doesn't seem like anybody's awesome. And it's also about being unique. Like each deck has its own flair. Like even if you just look at Armed Dragon decks, you could have Armed Dragon Thunder, could have Armed Dragon with Dragoonity, which is a thing. You can have Armed Dragon Link, which was a deck I played. You can have Armed Dragon Ojamas, Armed Dragon Heroes. Like there's just so many different, and that's what's cool. But like, we're we're at a point where at like your local level, which is where the majority of people who play Yu-Gi-Oh, who play in tournaments play, you can play pretty much anything and do okay, which is kind of awesome.
Gone are
like
the days where
you know,
you had to run staples. I feel like I don't hear that word anymore at all. Staples are dead.
The staples now are very different than the staples from like 15 years ago. The staples now are like, well, you should probably include these hand traps. But even that argument doesn't really work as much anymore, because then it's like, okay, or you can play board breakers, or you can just play all engine. Like one of the things I'm doing in this episode of Back to Basics is I took out, so last week I took out Molcharmi Perulia. And I put forth the theory that I'm like, I don't think it's actually as good as everybody makes it out to be right now. The card's good. Like, objectively, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think right now it's as good as everybody makes it out to be. And everyone's like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? You're mad. Go to the doctor. And I'm like, relax.
Doctor.
This week, I took out Foolos completely. So I'm playing 0 Molcharmies in my main or side. And I was like, I don't think that they are actually as necessary for success as people make them out to be. Because what comes up is that they activate a Molcharmy against you, which for those old heads who are watching and have no idea what I'm talking about, they're worse Max Cs. There's Max 2 and Max 3.
Yeah, that's fair.
They are weaker Max Cs, which is good. But so then you make a half field. Like, instead of making your full crazy combo, you make an okay one. And then you just, you try to stop what they're doing, and then you get to play again. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I can also just play cards that are also good going first that do that same thing. And if I just focus on hitting specific points of what you're trying to do, I'm going to get the same result. So I did that. And I was like, okay, so instead of playing the Molcharmies, I'm specifically playing Ash, Valor, Imperm. Those are the only hand traps I play, because the whole point of those is that they stop the key choke points of every deck, and that's it. Okay? Then I'm playing Enemy Controller, which is one of my favorite cards.
Oh, it's so good.
Absolutely one of my favorite cards. I play it at least once a format. And I'm like, all right, so the idea here being, I'm going to play these tempo cards, and even though you're playing Molcharmies and stuff, I'm just going to ignore you. I'm just going to yoink your stuff, and we'll be fine. And I played it I played it on Thursday, did okay, even though I lost to the deck that I have only ever beaten twice, Goblin Biker.
Yeah.
Can't beat that deck.
It's
I cannot
rough.
beat that deck.
Pretty rough.
It's impossible. Best deck ever. And then last night I played, and I just crushed everybody, because I was like, I'm never having to worry about like drawing the Molcharmies when they're inefficient, or drawing these hand traps at the wrong time. All I have to do is just play my game, and that's fine. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need to... That's really quick tangent. That's one thing I wish people would do more, is explore. In Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, I feel in Yu-Gi-Oh! Somebody will say, this is the deck, and then they'll watch the curated Master Duel or, simulator replays or something like that, and they see it working, and it's fun. Because as you were mentioning, taking out the Molcharmies, I've got a full play set of Molcharmies, and I realized, like, the last maybe, like, 5 or 6 decks I've built just don't have them, and it's for the same reasons. I don't want to, like... I play a lot of stuff that stays on the field, like field spells and continuous spells and traps and stuff like that, and, like, you can't. I'm controlling cards. I'm not doing stuff, and so it is a little rough. It is inefficient, like you said. So my results varied.
Yeah, and, like, I guess one good example of a card that I wish people would explore with more is one that I love to play, and that's Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Big fan of this card. And right now, it's actually in a really crazy strong spot, because you've got the Ryzeal decks, Ryzeal Fiendsmith decks, and then Fiendsmith everything else. And Ryzeal splashed here and there with other stuff too, and I was like, cool. So I'm going to go straight for Winter Cherries Fiendsmith Requiem when you can start to do your combo, and now that's gone, and you're stuck with a random Link monster, or if you're playing Ryzeal, you're stuck with an Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. That does nothing.
Yeah.
And I have won so many games with that. Or, like, if you play against the Ryzeal Pure deck, you hit Detonator, and you're like, okay, the scariest part of your deck is gone now.
Not to get too technical, are you worried about Eclipse Twins throwing a wrench in that gear? That's the new card from Supreme Darkness that is an Xyz material. When it goes to the graveyard, you pick the 2 Xyz and you stack one under the other. So that's like a way for them to get the Detonator back. I guess it wasn't special summon properly, so yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
never mind.
They won't be able to. But, like, that's a good example. That's a card that people just, like, I don't feel like explore enough with. Or one card that is a good example of people exploring with was Metal Tronus.
Oh, Metal Tronus is so hyped every time.
Good. And every time I see a result, I'm like, this is just, like, the best defensive card I've ever seen. Like, why isn't
Especially in
this played in
competitive play.
everything?
Because in competitive play,
Yes.
you should kind of have a vibe of what's popular, what people are playing. You know, a lot of people online are just like, this is what I think is the best deck, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's going to show up at the next tournament I'm at.
Well,
Just
and
really cool stuff.
it's cool to see, like, I'm a big fan of seeing, like, I call them micro evolutions of a format where people, like, optimize and then, like, hyper optimize the deck. I'm like, that's really cool. Unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, you are missing out on something. And whether it be, like, this crazy deck building edge, like, I don't remember what format it was, a couple formats ago, that people were like, Triple Tactics Talent, I don't play it. And I was like, I don't know why you wouldn't play it. I play it at 3 in every single deck.
Pot
It's good when I
agreed.
go first. If you hand trap me, cool, I get to look at your hand. If I'm going second, cool, I get to look at your hand, take a card, or draw 2. What? Enemy Controller is a card I always go back to. Like, always go back to. Where I'm like, if I go first, it's a defensive card. If I go second, I can yoink your cards while helping dodge cards. It's just insane.
I mean, it's going to get better too because actually the Mitsurugi cards, right? They activate some of their effects via tributing. So you can't
Yep.
just be like tribute, and I haven't seen that since like Evil Tile Najasho.
Yep.
It's a reach.
But it's just one of those things where people, will always talk about. A lot of online discourse is like, this is where like the vocal minority comes in, where it's like very doom and gloom, and I'm like, well, you guys gotta explore. Like,
you have to play the Yu-Gi-Oh!
13,000
trading
plus
card
cards.
game, yeah.
Like there's plenty of cards. I'm sure somewhere in there is something exciting for you to do. Or like I don't remember the name of it. It's the zombie. It's a level 4 world premiere zombie that just got revealed in the box
Oh,
opening.
if you hadn't
The
said it.
Phoenix. The Phoenix.
Oh, it's a common, and I didn't mention it in my
Yes.
video, and I felt so bad because that's always like my grading quiz when I do an unboxing video. You know, I don't know what the world premiere exclusives will be, and so I'm trying to like match it up. And then Duel Daddy puts out that spoiler list. I actually take it, I print it out, and I get like a little red marker and a green pen. I'm like, I remember this one, I remember that one, and it's whatever one I forgot, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
That card, I read it and went, this cannot be real.
It's like the one that
I'm
works
like,
with
this-
like zombies and fiends too.
Yes, I remember
wow.
reading it and I just went, this is a custom card. That is one of like the jokes I make is I'm like, if I say a card is a custom card, that means that somewhere somebody was like, if they ever made this for my deck, this would be crazy. The best example I always had was, imagine if they made a way so drawing Wolf in Lightsworn didn't suck.
Oh, you're talking
And then
about
they
Vice,
did.
right?
And then they made Vice, and I was
Yes!
like, "That's the
Oh,
crazy." And
Vice
then they
so
made
good.
Dragonling, and I'm like, and I remember thinking when I used to play Lightsworn, like, imagine if there's a way to search Judgment Dragon that just wasn't terrible. And then they made it, and I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. But then the zombie card is just a free tuner for no reason, and there's no downside to it. I'm like, this can't be real. Like, normal summon Mizuki, special summon that thing, and then you have either a free rank 4 or a level 8 or Link 2, and I was like,
Yeah, it's like Vampire Sucker or like any of the great, 8 synchros. And honestly, rank 4, I don't even have to advertise for them. We're in Ryzel format, right? So, good
the
stuff.
Fendred cards are also unironically like crazy zombie cards. Like there's,
Yeah.
and then also just even the generic zombie support. Like you can just do so much with so many cool things. And I think that is one thing that I say that we are in the Yu-Gi-Oh Renaissance right now.
Mhm.
Like I truly feel like this is the best Yu-Gi-Oh has ever been. But I think that looking back on it in 5 years will be the one thing that I will criticize the community on is there isn't enough exploration of crazy ideas. And I feel like we have examples of that when we look back at like Goat Control and Edison format and Dragon Rulers.
Oh, because they're exploring it more now. So we need like a
Yes.
Time Wizard 2025 so we can see how foolish we were for ignoring all these great cards.
Well, like a good example is in Edison, everybody thought that Quick Draw Dandy Warrior was the best deck because that's what Jeff Jones won with it.
Mhm.
And we were like, oh my gosh. And then we started having Edison tournaments and people realized this deck is not that good.
No,
It was
Jeff
really
Jones
cool.
is just an amazing duelist. Whoops.
Yeah. But like, the deck was okay. And if you're really good, you can do okay with it. But the deck overall, not that strong. And people were like, Black Wings is crazy. And then there's like this crazy deep draw dragon deck. And then there's Vayu Turbo. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Imagine if we had just explored, or like Dragon Ruler 2014, like the closest, like that WCQ format, everybody was like the hand artifact traptic decks was like the best deck. I'm like, I I don't know. And now looking back on it, you're like, Sylvan was just the craziest deck and was so ahead of its time. Like,
Oh
what
man, it was
happened?
so painful in Duel Links. I remember when Sylvan
Like,
was at a peak
who
power.
let this happen? Yeah.
Duelists.
Or like, trying to think, 20, even Teledad format was a good example of during Teledad format, there was evolutions where people were like, what if we started playing Royal Oppression in Teledad? What if we cut back on the emergency teleports? And then the last Shonen Jump Championship of that format, they were like, what if we just took out emergency teleport completely, played 3 Royal Oppression, 3 Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, and just played a control deck? And I was like, that was just the best deck of the format, and no one knew. And it's just because people were unwilling to explore. And like that, I think, is my biggest criticism of like, people need to do that more. And I think people also need to not just consume media and just assume that it's like
that it's the word of
correct.
law, right? They have
Yeah,
to like
I'm like,
explore it for themselves.
yeah, like you know, the mulch armies, like, not to, you know, drive home this point too hard, but people always complain about card prices, which is understandable. It's a fair criticism. Yu-Gi-Oh is an expensive hobby, very expensive hobby. I'm not gonna pretend it's not. But you know, like, you don't need them. Especially if you're not traveling to like YCSs and stuff, you really don't need them. You can usually win with just like whatever you have. It just comes down to like A, playing Yu-Gi-Oh a lot, and B, being willing to risk not doing well. Like, the best ideas in Yu-Gi-Oh have always been like just so out there. And in my opinion, all that stopped those ideas, sometimes like the best ideas didn't even do well. Like, I remember seeing somebody play Chocolate Magician Girl in the Minerva zombie deck. And I was like,
okay, because just a target a
why?
spellcaster, bring it back, yeah.
And I was just like, why? And they're like, well, you can discard Trick Clown and draw a card, and then the Trick Clown comes back and you make Minerva. And they did horrendously at every event they played in, but they were like, I swear this is good. And so one day I finally picked it up. I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Because you draw a card off of that, you get a free special summon, then you summon your Minerva, you mill 3, you potentially draw cards off of that. Like, that's crazy.
And Choco's
your
pretty
deck
good
is just...
by herself, too.
Yeah.
Like, just like Choco discard pass, sorry, as a Dark Magician Duelist, that was like a vibe. It's not a bad card, so you're right that like people sleep on a lot of stuff.
Or like one of the ones that I did was I played Tin Goldfish in the zombie deck. Specifically, I played it over Goblinberg, and I remember getting made fun of for it because I really played Goblinberg, and I played Tin Goldfish. And they played Goblinberg because it was a Rota target. I was like, right, but Tin Goldfish is a water. So when you bring it back with Elder Entity Norden, you can go into Bahamut Sharks, you go into Toad. And everybody was like, that'll never happen. And then every round I played for months, I was like, I'm just doing it because it's just there. But I think a lot of the times what happens is that people will see an idea, it won't succeed once, and they just write it off. Which is a shame, because a lot of the times those end up actually just being like the craziest ideas. Like we saw at the WCQ, somebody play 60-card Millennium Snake Eyes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It was like and everybody was like, oh, you know, it's just, he's playing the Exodia Snake Eye deck, like whatever, those cards aren't very good. And then like that same event, we saw multiple people in the top cut playing the Millennium cards just in a smaller deck. And I was like, yeah, because they're just free bodies. Or like the Punk cards, when they were originally released, people were like, they're okay, they're not that great. And then a week later, I was like, these are the craziest cards ever. They work with emergency teleport. And I'm like, yeah, guys, just like be willing to try them. Like, read them and go, what if I just did this crazy thing like once in a while? Or like the Rose Dragons, you know, we had Red Rose Dragon limited for a year because originally nobody thought that card was good, and then they realized, oh wait, it summons Rox Rose, which then gets Basil Rose Shoots. You get 3 tuners for the price of 1. Oh, that's ridiculous.
But it sounds like the difference between your mindset and other duels who just maybe didn't have the time or didn't choose it is that you're willing to have fun. Now, you're right that Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive, though. Like, tournament duels have the right to win because you got the plane ticket and the entry fee and the hotel room, and you got to have the cards, too. So, like, they're not scared, but they're like, this is my one shot. I want to do what I think is going to work.
That's different, too. I'm saying more like...
Just at locals, just have fun.
Just like, start at the local level, try something crazy. And then if it's an idea that you're like, this might be it, then you take it to a regional. And, like, if that works then, take it to a YCS. Don't do what I do and post this awesome combo that you came up with.
I remember that was
the Red Dragon. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that video just
don't
popped
do that.
off.
Did I ever tell you the worst part about that? So we'll wrap it up here in a second.
I knew you gave fire to the people. I remember that.
The worst part about that was, so I had seen somebody post some version of it. It was a Red Dragon Archfiend Snake Eyes combo.
Okay.
And I'd seen somebody post some version of it. Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I took it, I changed it a little bit, and I was like, I think I made it better. And so I made a video, and I was like, guys, this combo's really good. Don't know if it's worth playing, but I just want to show you guys. And I posted it on YouTube. And I remember going to locals, and one of my friends going, why would you post that? That's a really good idea. I'm like, well, no one's going to watch it. Because it was like the first video I'd made in a while, and like YouTube is really cruel where like if you stop making videos for a while, they just like will not promote your stuff at all. Like they are pretty harsh about it, understandably, because there's millions of channels. So they're like, no, we got to focus on the people who are doing stuff. And I was like, no one's gonna watch it. And during that tournament, I came up with a better version of that combo too, which is the deep lore of that story is that I wasn't even doing that combo. I was doing a different one, where it's even better. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember going, this is even more efficient. I think I made like Appaloosa on like Summon 4.
Oh, nice.
And then just like went off, and I was like, you can't lose. And then I like go to sleep, and I wake up the next day, and the video has like 400 views, and I'm like, okay, a couple people saw it, no big deal. You know, it's people who are looking for Snake Eyes stuff after the Forbidden Limited list, no big deal. By the time Raleigh came around, it had 10,000 views.
Ooh, so like 10,000 people, or like the same guy 10,000 times, really knows
I don't know.
Combo.
I'm really hoping it's that one guy, but then I sit down, and round one, my opponent does the exact combo in the video, and I'm like, oh wow, where'd you learn it? He goes, I saw it on a video, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
But that's like the real Yu-Gi-Oh experience, because like think about, okay, and I hate to be like the anime historian. Remember Yu-Gi-Oh! The Pyramid of Light, and they're like, I want to get Yugi's Egyptian god cards. It's the same concept, right? When you're doing well, people are gonna see it. So I'm not saying your friend's right or wrong about whether or not you should post it, but you brought fire to the duelists.
And then the worst part was that my first loss was to that exact combo, because it loses to every hand trap unless you did it. And like you had to do it just hoping they didn't have a hand trap. And then of course, the one time somebody just like goes for it against me, like, I didn't draw anything, I'm gonna lose.
I gotta draw better cards, man. Draw the out.
And then I lost to it, and I'm like, all right, it's fine. Day 2, and then day 2, then my second loss is to the other combo that was in there with Pit Knight early. And that was when I was convinced was crazy, because I had been doing it since like March of the earlier that year, where I was like, this is so crazy. Like, because I was playing a Snake Eye deck with like Dan Wrestler Pankratops and Fenrir, Triple Tactics Talent, Enemy Controller, big fan of Enemy Controller.
Left, right, AB.
And I was like, this is so crazy. Pit Knight early makes it so you have to play one Flamberge Dragon, so then you're not like bricking as much. And I sit down, and one of my buddies sits down, and he looks at me and goes, you know what's about to happen, right? And he does the early combo to me, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, and I look at him and I go, you saw my video? He goes, well, I mean, I knew about it, but yeah, I saw your video too. I'm like, man. And so I lose to him, and then on the bubble in day 2, dude sits down, game 3 opens up, full Red Dragon Archfiend combo, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Ooh. Next time you got to make the video and know what the out is, and just exclusively run the out and don't
I
run
had
the combo.
the out. I just couldn't do anything.
Just run more copies. You gotta left arm offering yourself to get whatever you need.
It was just so funny though, because I sat there and I remember looking at you day 1 being like, Steven, I've got this. Like, this combo is so crazy.
I do remember that.
See it. And I was like, you guys gotta feature me. I gotta show this off. And it just never happened. I was like, man, I shouldn't have told anybody.
You're fine. You're fine.
I should have just kept it to myself. I would have gotten a feature man. Oh, that event was fun though. I didn't even care. That was the first event I had gotten to play in since doing coverage, and it's the first one I had tried at in years. I got a gold coin. I was a VIP, nice. Which had never happened before. I was having a blast. It was a good time.
Yeah.
That event was great.
Well, this has been a good time too, gotta say. But we definitely still need to go ahead and let people know where they can find you, because we're not always going to be doing this for an hour plus at a time. So if you will tell... Yeah, no, it's been a good time. It's been a good time. I'm not trying to say anything bad there. I'm just saying we've been doing it. But with that in mind, can you remind our viewers where they can find you, so I can type all that into the description of the video?
Yeah. So my X is Z Butler. Well, so the handle is Z Butler TCG1 because I got locked out of my actual one, so it's the second one. Yeah. Also had won a sweepstakes on that previous one. and never got my prizes because I couldn't access it, so that was sad. But so
Ooh.
Zach Butler YGO on X, Zach Butler YGO on YouTube, and then on Infinite TCG Player. Shoutouts to TCG Player. It's just going to be Zachariah Butler under the Yu-Gi-Oh tab. I write every week, sometimes a couple times a week, so you'll always be able to find me there. And if you see me at an event, just come say hi. Just make sure you're like not scaring me because I do scare easily. So, yeah, that's about it. I'm
No jump
pretty
scares.
much. Yeah, please no. I say that I don't go to many events, and then I look back every year and I go, I went to a lot of events that year. I won't be at. Is it Orlando's the next one?
Orlando's the next one, yeah.
I won't be at Orlando. I don't think I'm going to Vegas.
What about Houston? You gonna come down to Texas?
I'm gonna try.
April 5th through 6th is what I want to say.
Yeah, the first quarter of the year is always rough. Second quarter tends to be easier. I'm gonna try, and then I will most likely be at the WCQ. I haven't missed one in ages, so yeah. If you guys see me at events, come say hi. Please come over to my YouTube channel. Let me know if you guys like what you see. Let me know what you want to see because I'm always looking to show off some cool stuff that I've got, and I love doing gameplay footage and just kind of yapping about Yu-Gi-Oh. So yeah,
Good time, man.
about
It's
it.
been a good time. I am
all
really
over.
glad that we got to know more about you and Yu-Gi-Oh! Because even I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know how half this stuff. Craziness.
Yeah, if it's there's a lot, and that's like book one of the like saga of my ancient Yu-Gi-Oh history.